Welcome to the Hormone Hub, your go-to source for the conversations every woman in her 40s and 50s needs to have. I'm your host, Kylie Pinwill, your nutritionist helping you navigate your way through perimenopause, menopause and beyond so you can say goodbye to endless fatigue, unexplained weight gain, hot flushes, PMS, mood changes, and more that come on this hormonal roller coaster. If you missed the memo or think this is only for women of a certain age, ladies, it's time to think again. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of my latest episodes, which are released every week. Share it with your friends, your sweaty sisters. The more we talk, the more we help each other. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hormone Hub. And today's episode, I'm going to talk about why the scales lie. All right. Now, we have been conditioned by the diet industry that, we need to be a certain number or we should be a certain number. And I know the frustration of, when we're working hard, we're being good, we're doing all the right things, only to get on the scales and see the numbers either going in the wrong direction or not quickly enough in the right direction. So today I just sort of want to give you some truths about those annoying weight fluctuations and, why the scales is not a good measure for us to use. Think of it as a tool, it's a measuring stick. And honestly, ladies, the scales need to go either in the garage or in the bin because they're a terrible measure of what's really going on. All right. So, when we lose weight, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're losing body fat because the average, bathroom scale's got no way of telling us, what our body tissues are doing, and weighing skinny on the scale doesn't always translate into healthy off the scale. So I'm going to go into why. So number one, scales can create an unhealthy fixation on numbers. Okay, so when we're just looking at the number, it can lead to some pretty unhealthy behaviors and obsessions, with weight loss that, it might not be necessary, it might not be healthy, and it might not be realistic, okay? And it takes up a lot of headspace, ladies, and I know this, I've been there. And, to be able to let go of the scales and let go of that number is very liberating, okay? I promise you. Now, number two, scales don't measure your overall health. Now, it's not a true measurement of your health and what's going on. It's just one of many variables that we should be taking into account to determine if we're approaching or maintaining an optimal body weight. It's just a tool. So being healthy involves much more than a number. Okay, so including factors like, your nutrition, your exercise, your sleep, your stress, the amount of inflammation in your body, your mental health, can be guided by the scales. And I have these conversations all the time. Women get on the scales and it's not what they want to see. And it's a kilo more, or it's a kilo over, or it's, we're talking tiny numbers. And, this is when you've been good and you've been doing all the right things, it's just such a blow to your self-worth, so don't let that number measure your self-worth. You are more than a number, okay? Number three, scales can be a source of stress. So when we're regularly jumping on the scales and when you're seeing a number that isn't what you want it to be, it does create stress and anxiety, which is, counterproductive to good health, which makes sense, right? Because cortisol, which is one of our stress hormones, promotes fat storage. And, when we're constantly getting on the scales and we're becoming obsessed about that number on the scales, it really isn't doing our mental health any good. It's not doing our stress response any good. So number four, is your ideal number that you want to see, is it actually realistic? So things to consider, how long has it been since you were actually at that ideal weight? And when you were at that, perfect number, was it easy to maintain? Next thing to consider, have you been there recently, or are we talking a weight that you were 20 years ago? Okay, so trying to aim for a number on the scales that was, it was hard to maintain, or it was back in your 20s or 30s, or it was before you had kids, it may not actually be realistic. Okay, so we kind of have these numbers in our head because we've been conditioned to weigh ourselves and remember the numbers. And I've got women who can rattle off their high school weight, their wedding weight, their pre-baby weight, their all of the things, and it's just not necessarily realistic for them, or they dieted and got down to a certain weight and they think that's the weight that they should be, whereas in fact they could never maintain that weight. Realistically they sat maybe 5 kilos heavier or whatever it was. Now with this, I'm not saying that we need to let go totally, and I'm not saying that we need to totally disregard the number. We do want to be a healthy weight and we want to be able to maintain a healthy weight, but I just want you to sort of think about, is it actually realistic, that number that you're aiming for in your head? Now, number 5, scales don't reflect our body shape or our clothing size. So we can have 2 women with the same weight and body composition, but have 2 totally different body shapes and clothing, and this depends on their distribution of fat and muscle. So instead, I want you to focus on how your clothes feel. Are they starting to get looser? Are they starting to get tighter? Can you fit into, clothes that you haven't worn for a while? Are you zipping up your work pants and they're a bit easier? And if we think of, a kilo of muscle is, muscle's like a compact small brick. Okay. So if we've got a kilo of brick, it's a solid, heavy bit. And then we could have a kilo of fat is like a kilo of a bulky, lumpy pillow. So think about how much room the brick takes up and how much room a kilo of pillow takes up. They're 2 totally different things, but they weigh the same. And this is why, when we gain muscle and then shift body fat, this is why we feel, slimmer. This is why we feel sort of firmer, but the scales may not have actually changed. Okay, number 6. The scales may well be inaccurate too. So if we've got a pair of bathroom scales in our bathroom and they've been there for 20 years, I would probably put money on it that you haven't had those scales recalibrated ever. And, they can vary in accuracy and the calibration can change, the placement on the floor, the surface they're on, can all affect their reading. So, don't take those bathroom scales as gospel. All right. And number 7 is think about where your hormones are at. Okay, so some women can gain up to 4 kilos right before or during their period. Okay, and that fluctuation of 2 to 3 to 4 kilos across the space of a month is totally normal. And this is because, we get that natural drop in progesterone just before our period. And this can cause, digestive issues. It can cause water retention, can cause constipation. And, all of these things can influence the scales. We also tend to, have a drop in, magnesium, which drives our insulin levels up, which leads to cravings, especially for those carby foods. If we've been eating lots of carbs or lots of sugar or lots of salt, our body can hold on to water weight. Insulin's a hormone that's made by our pancreas. It keeps our blood sugar levels in check, but it's also considered a fat storage hormone. So if we're, going through those fluctuations, we've got higher levels of insulin, and potentially it can reflect on the scale as well. Now, scales can be misleading. So this is number 7. Now, seeing a change, or what are we up to? Number 8 or number 9? Lost count, You know me, I'll just keep talking. So the scales can be misleading. So seeing a change in the weight on the scale doesn't necessarily mean our health has changed, because like I said, our weight can fluctuate for many reasons that's got nothing to do with body fat or our overall health. Okay, so the scale just doesn't weigh fat. It weighs muscle, it weighs bone, it weighs our organs, it weighs water, it weighs, our digestive system, it weighs our poop. So, we can experience daily fluctuations of 200 to 400 grams of a big poo that's still sitting, that you haven't pooped out yet. Okay, so poop, there's a lot, everything that gets put in needs to come out. So, we can have a fluctuation before a big glass of water. We can have a fluctuation, before and after, going to the toilet. So, just on that, make sure you keep your bowels moving, ladies. Plenty of fluids, plant-based fibers, veggies, and if necessary, talk to me, message me, talk to your health practitioner about getting some targeted supplementation, because it's important that we are pooping on a regular basis. This Hormone Hub episode is sponsored by The Well Balanced Woman. If you've been on a hormonal roller coaster, feeling bloated, your digestion isn't the best, and you're sick and tired of feeling lethargic with your weight creeping up, then this is the right program for you. I'm right there with you across the 12 weeks to hold your hand, and I'll give you a loving kick up the bum if you need it. The Well Balanced Woman is your personalised 4-phase program created to help you regain your energy, balance your hormones and fire up your metabolism so you get the results you're after. The link with all the details is on our show notes or over at kyliepinwell.com/wellbalancedwoman. Okay, so the next one, maybe number 8, number 9, not really sure. Scales don't differentiate between muscle and fat. So if you are, working, if you're exercising, if you are building lean muscle tissue through weights, yoga, Pilates, whatever you're doing, you might not see a change in weight on the scales, even though your body is getting healthier. And likewise, the scales can't tell if you've gained muscle. So building muscle tissue is metabolically better for you because, fat is it's just passive tissue. It just sits there, doesn't do anything. It's our lumpy pillow. Whereas, building muscle means we've got, metabolically active tissue, and it means, our metabolism's ramping up. So you want that muscle. Okay. And, building muscle, ladies, doesn't mean that we're going to turn into the Incredible Hulk. We need to let that go. Building muscles, and, it can be through Pilates, it can be through yoga, weight training, resistance training, strength training, body weight training, all of this, it is important to be, developing that lean muscle tissue. And, when we are dropping body fat and building muscle tissue, it can be possible to lose centimeters and not see a change in the scales. Okay. I've had clients who have dropped up to, 34, 38, 40 centimeters and only seen like 2 or 3 kilos move on the scales. So, but, dropped a dress size. So what would you rather do? Drop a dress size or, see a number? Okay. So the next one is, it doesn't take body composition into account. So 2 people with exactly the same weight, so 2 women with very different body compositions, but they're the same weight. So one, it's same weight, same height. One can have more muscle and less fat, and the other one can have more fat and less muscle. So like I said, the more muscle we have, the more energy our body burns, even when we're just sitting around. So we've got that metabolically active tissue. And, it's also a reason why a fit, active person is generally able to eat more than, a chronic dieter who is, unknowingly breaking down and losing that muscle tissue and doing that metabolic damage, okay? And the final one is scales can be affected by water weight. So when we wake up and, we're told to weigh yourself first thing in the morning after you go to the toilet, blah, blah, blah. So we're waking up, we've fasted all night, we're completely dehydrated, and this is our lowest weight of the day. So, this is why they say have a weigh yourself before you eat, drink, blah, blah, blah. But, what doesn't come into consideration is where you're at in your menstrual cycle. Did you eat salty food last night? Did you have, some pasta last night? Something that's, causes you to temporarily holding onto water in your cells, how much inflammation is going on in your body. Our hydration levels can, if we have a litre of water, that's a kilo of water we've just put into our body. So if we get on the scales dehydrated, first thing in the morning, see the number. If I go off and drink a litre of water, that's a kilo of water, I'm going to be a kilo heavier on the scale. It makes sense. And it's got, that weight fluctuation has got nothing to do with the actual changes in body fat. And likewise, if you get on the scale and you've gone up 2 or 3 kilos overnight, you have not put on 2 or 3 kilos of body fat overnight. All right. So the bottom line is these sort of yo-yoing numbers have nothing to do with your long-term progress. And, it's just one part, it's one measuring tool, and it's a pretty lousy one, okay, to be honest. So what we want to do instead, this is what I do with all of my clients in the Well Balanced Woman program, is we have a look at, we have a progress tracker. And we get you to list all of the things going on. So how are your energy levels? How's your sleep? How's your mood? How are your hot flushes? How are your night sweats? How's your bloating? How's your, digestion? Are you pooping regularly? How's your skin? How's your, all of these, how's your mental health? How's your body confidence? So measuring these things is when we start to see progress in the right direction. So we start off, measure everything out of 10, and then come back in 2 or 3 weeks and measure it again. My headaches that I was having daily have gone. My work pants zip up now. I'm not bulging out of my work pants. I'm going to the toilet every day. I'm sleeping. I'm a much nicer wife, So I feel more confident in my own skin. I feel better in my own skin. I've got more energy, so I'm now getting up half an hour earlier and going for a walk or doing that Pilates class online. These are the things that truly measure the changes in your health. So when we get improvements in your physical, mental, and emotional well-being, we are moving in the right direction, and weight loss comes as a side effect of that. It's when we focus on the number and focus on, the diet or the calories or the obsession about that food, it takes up so much headspace. We're smarter than this. We don't need for that to be taking up this real estate in our heads. You're amazing. You are not a number. Okay. I want you to remember that. You are more than a number. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and much love to all of you, because, you are worth way more than a number. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. You can head on over to the show notes at kyliepinwell.com/podcast, where you'll find all the links, and I have a little bonus surprise waiting for you. Before we go, it would mean the world to me if you head on over to your favourite podcasts channel, subscribe and leave a review. Make sure to screenshot it, DM it to me so I can thank you personally. Then stay tuned for next week's episode. Can't wait to see you then.